Good day, everyone, and welcome to our second class. I hope we've been able to go through the first class and we understood what we learned in the course of the class. For today's class, we'll be learning how to import data into Excel. We'll also be introduced into various functions and formulas. For the functions, we'll be doing basic numerical functions such as average, minimum, maximum, count, and then we'll also deal with some basic text functions such as concatenate, trim, mid, left, right, and the rest of them. Then finally, we will be treating or learning the difference between relative um, self-referencing, absolute self-referencing, and mixed self-referencing. So we'll be starting with learning how to import data into Excel. Okay, so right now I'm in a new sheet. It's actually a blank sheet. So we will be importing data into this blank sheet, right? And like I said in the other class, we can find the means to import data into Excel in our data tab. So if I click on this data tab, I can find different sources or different places where I can get data or rather import data from into Excel. So then when I click on get data, I can see there's a drop down here. I can see a lot of places I could get my data from, online services, database, and the rest of them. So hovering over from file, I can see there are some options listed here in the drop down. I can see I can import my data from Excel workbook. So these are like files that are already in Excel format. Then I can see from text slash CSV and XML. So I'll be teaching us how to get how to import a file that is in CSV format. So CSV is an acronym for comma separated value, and when a file is in CSV format, it is not the same thing as when it is in Excel format, right? When it's in Excel format, the data looks exactly like when you import it, you will see that they are all separated by columns, right? Or maybe when you open it using a notepad, right, you see that it is not the same thing as one that is in CSV format. So if I open a CSV format file in notepad, I will see that what separates it might be comma or space depending on the delimiter that was used, right? So most times it's usually comma, right? So I will show us what it looks like. So let me click on this, and it will open our file for us, our file explorer for us, where we can get what we want, right? So I'll just click here, and then this is the CSV file that I want to import. I'll just click on it and then import. But I want to show us what it looks like when you open it in a notepad, right? So I will go to my file explorer and find the document. So I will show us. So let me edit it in a notepad. Okay, so this is the file, or yeah, this is the data set in my notepad, right? So I can see that I just have commas separating it. These are like my headers, the title of each columns. I have price, I have area, bedroom, bathroom, stories, main road, etc. And then these here are like the contents of each column. For instance, this first one, which are just numbers, I think this is like 153 million or something like that, is under price. Then the next one, which is 7420, is under area. Then the next one, which is 4, is under bedroom. But you can see that what actually separates all these things are commas, right? So if we import it into our, or rather if we just decide to open this file now in Excel, we might see it separated by columns, right? But Excel will tell us that it does not recognize the formats of this document, so we have to rename it and resave it as an Excel workbook before we can officially use it in Excel, right? But if I try importing it, it will easily recognize, Excel will easily recognize the sheet or the data set without me having to rename it, save it, and the whole process. I'll just show you what I mean. So I'm just going to cancel this and minimize this. So once I import, I can see it will start connecting and loading into my Excel. Okay, so here it brings out this window for me here, right? So here I can see the file origin. I don't really have any business changing it, but then here it's asking me for the delimiter, right? So the delimiter is comma from when we opened it in Notepad. So but if we checked before and then it was not comma, we can easily click on this drop down here, this arrow down here, and then we can choose the right one, the right delimiter. If the right one is not comma, blah blah blah, we can just custom the right one, but comma is our right one, so we'll just click on comma. And then this data is actually a large data set, so it is truncated. Here they said the data in the preview has been truncated due to size limits. So because it's too much, it's too big, this if it's too much for it to be displayed, everything to be displayed, so it got reduced, right? It just showed us the first few 50 or something of our rows. So coming down to below here, we can see cancel transform data load. So cancel means that we don't want to import the data anymore, and then we can cancel. But then transform is, as when we click on transform, it takes us a Power Query editor, which is something we'll still do later on in our classes. And Power Query editor is a feature in Excel that we can use to clean our data, right? So if we want to transform the data, clean the data before importing it into our Excel sheet, that is where it will take us. Then the next one is load. So if we click on load, it directly loads our data sets into Excel sheet, right? But then if we click on this drop down arrow and go to load to bring out this argument window for us. So this argument window wants us to choose how we want to view the data in our workbook. Do we want to see it as a table? Do we want to see it as a pivot table report, as a pivot chart? These things might be sounding strange to us, but as we move on in our classes, we'll get to understand and hear more of them often. And so we'll leave it as table. We want to view it as table in our workbook. And then it will ask us, where do you want it to put the data? Is it into a new sheet or an existing sheet? So we already opened a blank sheet, right, for importing this data. So we are just going to click on existing sheets and then click OK. Okay, so this here is my data, right? So I can see that the color, there is like a different color, a color change, right? So this is because I inserted it into a table. So in Excel, tables help us to easily update our data sets and also easily calculate do some calculations and some functions, right? So for instance, now if I come to the last column, right? Okay, so my last column is location. That's the last column in my table is location. But then I want to add data about revenue. So I'll come to this column O and type revenue, and then enter. So I can see automatically as I'm entering my data, it is becoming part of my table. right? So it makes our work easier in Excel. And then when I perform some certain, if I perform any calculation, once I perform it for the first row, it automatically fills it down into the other rows for me. I don't really need to repeat the calculation or do autofill. So this is actually how to import data into Excel, especially comma separated files, right? So we'll move on to the next thing we have, which is intro into functions and formulas. So this is the data set we use for our first class, right? So I'm just going to delete this. Okay. Okay, so introduction to formulas in Excel. Okay, normally we all did mathematics in primary school, right? So we know about addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, right? So in Excel, all those things are called operators. For instance, clicking into this total, you can see that we did addition because of the addition sign. So this sign now, this addition sign is called an operator in Excel. Likewise, the subtraction sign, and then we have the multiplication sign, which is asterisk, and then we have division sign, which is forward slash. So I'm just going to show us a little bit example with let's say multiplication. So let's just say I want to multiply all this, and normally starting our formula or functions anytime any day, we start with the equal to sign. So I'll say equal to, I'll click into the first cell, and then multiply as multiplication sign, which is asterisk, and that is holding down the shift key and then the pressing the 8 keypad on our keyboard. Then I will highlight the second one, and then asterisk, and then the third one, and enter. So I've gotten the answer for the first one. I could just fill everything up. Please don't mind the error I'm getting here, just because the total I deleted is part of this percentage, because we use the total to calculate our percentage. So this is just it about formulas. We can also try doing something with the forward slash, maybe input data by ourselves, open a blank sheet, input the any form of information we want, and try the division, which is forward slash. And I believe by now we all know how to input data into Excel or enter data into Excel, because that was how we formed this table we are using now. So I'm just going to undo what I did now. Yeah. So the next thing we are going to do is to go into some basic numerical functions. So we have sum, we have average, we have minimum, maximum, count. So we are going to be starting with sum. So I am just going to delete this once more, and do our sum function. So to perform some functions, we can do it through various ways. I can choose to go through my formulas tab, right? So once I click into the cell where I want to get my total from, I will just, or rather where I want to calculate my total, I will go to formulas tab, and then we can see here that we have a lot of formulas categorized together. For instance, this is financial, right? So anything you see here has to do with like um finance, probably all these accounting people. Yes, exactly. Then we have logical. This is where you see the if, the and, on, or, not, and the rest of them. We have dates and time. We have texts. So this is where you can see those need the text functions that I said we'll do later on. And then this is the lookup and reference. This is where you can find HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP. Yeah. So then we have the math and trigonometry, right? So this is definitely where we can find our sum, because mass sum is a mathematical expression, right? So, and we can see that our functions are arranged alphabetically, right? So we'll just go down to S, and then this is sum, and we'll click on it, which brings out this argument window for us, right? So from this argument window right now, here it is asking me what do I want to sum, right? So it is actually giving me a range already. For instance, I can see it's giving me D4 column F4. So in Excel, whenever we see a column separating two cell names, that means we are referring to a range. So for instance, this is D4 to F4. So it is telling us that I am trying to add everything spanning from D4 to F4. So anything that is now between D4 and F4, I am adding everything together. So which is something like D4, E4, and F4, right? So when we look down here, our range is actually correct. So I will not delete this to put in a correct range. This one is already correct. So when we look down here, we can see that it's giving us a preview of our answer already. So I'll just click OK, and then this is my answer. I can then drag down, but I want to show us another way that we can do our sum function. So going to the cell below, so rather than going to formula tab, I will come to my formula bar and start typing. So I will say equal to sum, sum. So you can see that as I'm typing it, more options or drop downs are coming out. So I'll just choose the one I want. Sum if and sum ifs are more like conditional sum, in a situation where I want to do some addition but based on certain criteria, right? So I'm just going to click on sum, and then from this pop up or drop down, whatever I you can call it, choose to call it, I can see that it's giving me direction on what next to do, right? So it's asking me number one, what is the first number I want to add, which is this. I'll just click into it. So rather than putting the submission sign or the addition sign, I'll just put a comma. So because we are not putting an addition sign, because we've already told Excel sum, so the sum covers or rather replaces the addition sign that we were meant to put. So then after comma, the second value I want to add, then another comma, and then the third value, and then I'll close my brackets and enter. Okay, so I made a mistake of using my first value, right? I'm calculating for Ojuju, which is the second name, and I was using the value for Ezechisom. So I'm just going to go back and do that once again. First value, second value, and third value. Then I'll close my brackets, and that is enter. Okay, so this is another way that we could choose to do our sum function. So another way we can also do it is typing equal to, right, then sum, then I'll double click. So rather than putting in the numbers I want one, because in a situation I have a large data set, I cannot be doing it one, it's time consuming. So rather than doing that, I'll just highlight the range of cells that I want to add. So I will click into the first cell, then highlight and drag to the last one, which gives me the range. I can see this is column F6. Then I'll close my brackets and enter. So this is 1 2 6. This is my answer. Then I can now fill down, right? So these are like ways we can choose to do our calculations, right? So I will also show us another way of doing summation. There is something called auto sum. So I'll just delete this total here. Okay. So another way to do sum is something called auto sum. So when we go to our formula tab, you can see this big addition sign here. So this is called auto sum, right? If we click down on it, you can see some auto average, auto count number, auto max, auto mean, and the rest of them. So I want to show us how to do auto sum. So once I click into the cell that I want to add, this is the cell I want to add. I will not type anything. I'll just come to formula bar, then click on my auto sum. And as you can see, automatically it types in the formula, the function, and it also highlights the range for me. So I just click enter, and then my results is displayed. I can also choose to just highlight all the cells that I want to add all at once. I can highlight everything, then go to formula tab and then click on auto sum. It automatically calculates everything for me. Then there is a shortcut for auto sum that I would like us to know. So let's just say I highlight everything that I want to calculate, I want to sum. So or rather, it's not what I want to sum. I'm highlighting. I'm highlighting the cells where I am finding the total, right? Where I want the calculation to be. So the shortcut is alt and equal to. So you have the alt button, alt, the alt keypad in your keyboard. Then so when you hold down the alt key, you then click equal to, right? So it gives you your, it performs auto sum for us. That is the shortcut or the short form for auto sum. So I believe we are all okay with this. Okay, here we can see this green stuff at the edge here. So this green stuff is trying to tell us that there is an error in this calculation. Not really like we performed an error. Okay, the thing is that automatically Excel recognizes dates as it recognizes dates as number. So it's trying to tell us this error is here because we did not include these dates when we are trying to do the submission for this column, right? Or rather for this row, right? So that is why it's returning error. We can choose to say, okay, update formula to include cells, the cells that we are omitted, because the error message is that formula omits adjacent cells, which is these dates. So if we decide to say update formula to include the omitted cells, you can see that our value changes, and that is not what we want, right? So I'm just going to undo it. So to remove this green thing, I will just highlight the range of cells where I have the error message, then I'll click and then ignore the error. So once I ignore the error, everything, once I ignore the error, everything, all the green stuffs at the upper left of ourselves, at the upper left corner of ourselves, they disappear. So now the next thing we are going to do is we've learned how to do sum. We are going to learn about average, minimum, maximum, and count. So I'm just going to type in average here. Average, enter, minimum, enter, maximum, enter, and then count, right? Okay, so we want to find the average of English language, average for mathematics, average for physics, average of our total. So what we are going to do is, as always, start with equal to. So I'm going to go to my formula bar. I like using formula bar because most times when I start typing into cells, the cells might be too small to contain all the formula and then or all the functions, and then I'll get confused at some point. But typing into formula bar exposes everything because the formula bar is quite long and large. So I will say equal to average. So as I'm typing the average, I can see options coming out for me. I can see average, average A, average if, average ifs, like that. So I'll just click on the one I want, which is average. And I can see the same options is brought for me when I was trying to do sum. So here it's trying to tell me, okay, put the first number that you want to first number of your range for the average. So that means I can click on this one, then comma, click on the second one, which is actually quite long and tiring. So rather than doing that, I will highlight. So I will highlight the English subject course for my students. Then I will close my brackets and then enter. So I can see that the average for English is 44. Then I will autofill this function and it gives me the average for my other subjects too. So in Excel, we can see that in Excel, um, Excel recognizes when we autofill, it recognizes that we want to copy the function or the formula and not the contents of the cell, right? So you can see when we click into this first one, the range is D4, D10, but then the next one is E4, E10. So it's only the function it's copying, right? It's not copying the values of each range into the next, it's just the function. So the next one we are going to look at is minimum. So as always, go to my formula bar, equal to min. So we don't have to type out the minimum complete. So I'll double click and then highlight the range where I'm looking for my minimum, and then close my brackets and enter. So I can see that the minimum score for English is 20, and then I'll drag and autofill. Then that's for mathematics is 40, physics 30, then our total is 90. Then the next one I will do is maximum, and it's just the same way, equal to max. Then I will highlight, close my brackets and enter, and then I can autofill, right? Okay, so the next function we are going to look at is the count function, right? So the count function counts the number of values we have. Okay, so we want to know the number of values we have in English, the number of values we have in maths, the number of values we have in physics. So as always, I'll come to my formula bar, equal to count. So I can see here I have count A, count blank, count ifs. So anything that contains if is a conditional function, right? So you're trying to count based on certain condition or certain criteria. So while count blank counts only the blank cells that we have in Excel. So in case in a situation we have any blank cell for maybe mathematics or physics, if we want to count it, we are going to use a count blank. Then we have the count A. The count A counts both numbers and text. So say we have both alphabet and numbers in our report here, we can use count A for that. But in a situation where we have just only numbers, we have to use count, right? Okay, so I will double click on that and then highlight the range and close, enter. Okay, so I am going to autofill this. Okay, so in a situation, let me just say this, I delete this 20, right? And then I click enter. So I can see that my count for this column for my English language reduced to 6. Why? Because this cell is empty. This cell is empty, there is nothing here. So, and count cannot do that, cannot count this cell for us because it is blank. If we want to count this cell, we are going to use count blank. Then let's just say I type um let's say I type ada, right, and click enter. So I can see it remains 6, right, because count only performs its magic on numbers, right? So in a situation I'm using count if I can see, okay, let me just try to do that so understand what I'm saying. So let me add a after my t. So I have added a and then click enter. So I can see it increased. It went back to 7, right? Because count a can count both alphabet and numbers. But I don't want to use count a. I want to use count only count, right? So I'm just going to undo this. Okay, so I have my sheet back how I want it. So this is it for the basic numerical functions that we'll be dealing with. So the next part of our class today will be dealing with basic text functions. So we'll be learning about concatenate, we'll be learning about trim. So if we look at our name here, we can see that this was not how we ended up this was not how our name was looking after our last class, right? So I added some changes and so that we can use it to look at our text functions, right? So all right, so to start, I will start with concatenate. So concatenate helps us to join two things together. So right now I have, let me say this is the surname and then this is the first name, right? So I want to join the two names together so they will not be in separate columns. I want them to be in one column, right? You know how we all write our names, like if we're asked to write our full names, that is how I want it to appear. I don't want it to be surname separate, first name separate. So what I will do is to insert a new column. So there are two ways of inserting new columns. I can click on, okay, for instance, I want to insert a column after B because I want it to be beside this first name here. So what I will do is to click the next column, right? Then I will go to home, the home tab. Then under this category here called cells, I can see insert, delete, format. So I'll go to insert and click on the arrow. So here I can say insert cells, insert sheet columns, insert sheets. But what I want, if I insert cells, it will just insert few cells for me, right? And I don't just want only cells. I want a sheet column. So I'll just click on this and it does the magic for me. Or I could choose to, let me delete this and show us another way. So another way I could choose to do it is using the shortcuts, and the shortcut is holding down Control Shift and then plus. So Control Shift plus, it adds a new column for me here, right? So the next thing is to start my function, right? So this is the first one I want to join together, and I will say equal to concat. So here I can see there is concat, there is concatenate. Both of them mean the same thing actually, but I think older versions of Excels used to have concatenate, but then I don't really know. But I know I older versions use concatenate, but in this one, what we are using is concat, right? So I'm just going to double click this, and then it's asking me to put the first text that I want to join together. So this is the first text, comma. Then it's asking for the second text. Okay, so this is the second text. And okay, let's just say these are the two texts I want to join, and then I close my brackets and press enter. So when I fill this up, um when I fill this up, you can see, looking at Eze Chisom, I am seeing a space between Eze and Chisom because in Chisom here, I added some space before typing in my Chisom, so that is why we are seeing a space between the both of them. But then look at Oji Uju. So there is no space between Oji and Uju. So someone reading this can think it's just a name, a single name, right? A single word. The same thing with this one, Musa Ade. And why is it like this? It is like this because we did not put a separator. We are meant to put, like, if we want a comma to separate the two names, if we want column, semicolon, hyphen, or just space, right? So we need to indicate what we are using as our separator. So I'm just going to undo this and then go back to my initial function. So to put my separator, after the first text that I want to join, I will put my separator as my second text. For instance, now it is asking me for second text or text 2. So my text 2 now becomes the separator that I want to use. And to put that, I have to enclose it in a semicolon. So I'll add my semicolon, space, semicolon, then comma. It's now asking me for text 3. So text 3 becomes the second text that I want to join, right? And then I'll close my brackets and enter. So when I copy this, yeah, so it's looking better right now. At least there is a space between Oji and Uju, between Musa Ade, between Buhari and Umar, right? But then there are some extra spaces, so we need to remove these extra spaces, and we are going to use string to do that. But before we do that, this our new column now is in a formula format, right? We cannot perform another, is in a function format, or rather a calculation format, because if we look in the formula bar, we are seeing it as a function, unlike this one that when we click into it, we are seeing it as just a text, right? But these ones are in functions format, so we need to change it so that it will become like a value like this, right? So what we are going to do is to copy and paste, right? So we are going to highlight this and then Control C, and then we are going to come to our first column here, highlight this, and then rather than just doing Control V and pasting it, it's going to give us an error if we do that. So let me do it, Control V, sorry, right, it's not working. So let me try copying it again, Control C. So rather than doing that, what I will do is to, oh god, why, okay, Control C, all right. So rather than coming to do Control V and pasting it like that, rather I'll go to Home tab and then find options for different ways of pasting. So there are all these things here, different ways we could choose to paste these columns that we copied. So I will go to this, I want to paste it as a value, so I will just search for paste as value, and that is this, right? So if I hover around this value, so I'll just click on this and then it pastes this for me, and then I can now delete this ones, I don't need it again, delete, and I can delete my columns too, and then delete this one because I don't need it too, and delete the column, delete, right? So now the next thing I want to do is to remove the extra spaces here. I don't need it, so I will just come to this column. I'll have to insert another column for it. So we can see that as we are clicking into these cells, we are seeing it not as a function again, but as text, right? So as I want to remove the spaces, I will have to insert a new column. So I will say Control Shift plus, and then it gives me a new column. So as always, we are going to use the trim function, and we are going to start with equal to sign. So I will say equal to trim, which is trim, double click, and then include the text, close my bracket, and click enter. So it's giving me an error, and that is because when I inserted my new column, I was still having a, let me show you something, Control Shift plus. So this brush here, I'll click on it, and it's asking me format as left, format as right, clear formatting. So I want to format it as right, as a normal column, right? So I'll just click on this, so that's, and then I'll start doing performing my function. So equal to trim, then I will click on this and then close my bracket and enter. Right, so I can see that the extra spaces are gone. Right, I am now seeing just Eze, Chisom. Like, I can see the spaces between Eze and Chisom is now smaller. Right, so let me fill this up for the rest of my, let me fill this up, autofill. So right, so I can see this is looking better. This, our second column, is looking better than the first. So as always, I will copy, Control C, and then um go to my home, paste it as values, then I can delete this. Right, so yeah, so we can see here that as a Chisom, every name here is looking better, is looking well aligned, right? Then the next thing we are going to do is to change the alphabetical size. I can see here that some have big alphabets, some have small alphabets, but is either I make everything big alphabets, or I make everything small alphabet, or I make it in a proper manner. In a proper manner being the first alphabet of every name will start with a capital letter, but then every other one will now have small letter, right? For instance, E in Eze will be capital letter, while the remaining alphabet will be small letter. C in Chisom will be capital letter, while the remaining alphabet will be in small letter, right? So to do that, I will come to this cell equal to, so let's just say we want to make everything to be, let's start with capital letter. So I will say upper, upper, then I'll double click, and then I'll put this text and close brackets, then enter. So I can see that everything is in capital letter, and then I can drag and fill. So I can see that everything right now is in capital letter, or I can change it to small letter. So I will just come to my formula bar and remove upper and change it to lower. Then I'll double click on lower. Okay. Okay, so then I'll click enter. So I can see that Eze Chisomi is now in small letter, right? So I can also drag down, and everything is in small letter. But then I want to make it to be in proper, right? So I will just change my lower here. I'll change my lower to proper. So now I can see how it looks like. E starts Eze, The E in Eze, the first E starts with capital letter while the rest are in small letters. So I can drag and fill. Okay, I don't really want that for my total. So I want my total to remain my total, right? So this is it, and now we can choose to replace this column with the new column. So in the same way, we can highlight, then Control C, and then highlight where we want to paste it, and then go to our home and choose the way we want to paste it, which is as value. And then we can delete this, we don't need it anymore. And I can delete the column, right? So this is what we have. So we can see that our names are now, our name column is looking better. Yeah. So the next thing we are going to do is to explain the difference between, or rather understand what cell referencing is, right? So there are three types of cell referencing. We have the um, relative cell referencing, we have the absolute cell referencing, and then the mixed cell referencing. Okay, so to illustrate for our cell referencing, right, I inserted this little information here for us to understand our cell referencing. So right now I want to calculate, do a multiplication for my length and my weight, right? So I want to calculate this and this, right? So okay, so to illustrate to us what relative cell referencing is basically the relative position of a cell. For instance, I explained to us what this name box does. It tells us the active cell, it gives us the name of the active cell. So for instance, I click into this, it is giving me T6, which is the relative position of this my cell. And then this one is giving me S7, which is the relative position of this my cell, right? So that is basically what relative cell referencing is about. So let's just say I multiply um the width by the length. So I am multiplying this one by this one, right? So I will say equal to the width, then multiplication sign, and then the length, right? And then enter. So it gives me one, right? And then when I click, I fill up the rest of the blank spaces. This is what happens. It moves one cell down each, right? So for me to get this one here, it's multiplied um the value in T6. For me to get this one, it's multiplied the value in T6 and S7. You can see that in our formula bar, right? Then for me to get the next cell beneath it, it's multiplied T7 and S8. So it multiplied this T7, this one we got here, and S8, which is this 1.5. Then for us to get the next value beneath, which is this 3, it multiplied T8 and X9, and T8 is the one above, and S9 is these two by the side. So you can see that there is a sequence going on. It is going one step below, one step below, one step below, and that is relative cell reference. For instance, when we did all this our calculation here, for instance this summation, it's understood that the first range should be C4 to E4, right? Then the second range is now the next cell beneath it. Okay, let me use this. This is C7 to E7. Then it's understood that for us to do the next summation, we have to go one cell below, which is now C8 to E8, and then the next one C9 to E9. So that is relative cell referencing in Excel. It just understands that this is a sequence, right? I have to be going down below one cell. So, but let's just say that I want to, in this calculation, right? I just want this width, this T6 to be will I call it stagnant? I just want it to be fixed. Yes, let me use the word fixed. I just want it to be fixed in the sense that this one will multiply the length, this one will multiply 1.5, this one will multiply 2.0, this one will multiply 2.5, right? That is what I want. I just want this one to be fixed, right? So what I will do is to lock this is T6, yeah. So what I'll do is to log this T6 that contains my first width value, right? So I want to lock it in so that it does not move one cell below. I don't care if this one is moving one cell below. It should. I want it to be. But I don't want this 1.0, this T6 to be moving one cell below. So what I will do is to lock my cell number. Remember that in the first class we said our columns have alphabet and our rows have number. So when I look at this T6, 6 is my row number, while T is my column name. So what I want to do is to lock my row number so that it will remain in T6, so that it does not go down to T7, to T8, to T9. I just want it to remain in T6. So to lock it in, I will use a dollar sign to do that. So a dollar sign helps us to lock in a particular cell. So when I put a dollar sign now, I will click enter. And then when I autofill this formula now, or this calculation, I can see that it gives me what I want, because this one gets locked in such that this one multiplied by the length 1, it gives me 1. This one multiplied by 1.5, it gives me 1.5. This one multiplied by 2, it gives me 2. This one multiplied by 3, it gives me 3, right? So this is actually what I want. So I'm just going to give us another instance to make us understand it more, right? Oh, I'm going to redo this. Okay. Okay, now, so to illustrate more, one more example so that we'll understand what I mean, right? I want to use only the one here, this one in X7, to multiply all these things here, right? I want to use this one in S7 to multiply all my width, all these values that are in my width. I want to use it to multiply it. So I will say equal to, then I'll highlight this S7, then multiply by this, it will give me 1, right? And then when I autofill this, can we see what happened? One multiply this one here, multiply this one here will give me 1. Then this one that I got here will now go and multiply this 2 and it will give me 2 here. Then this 2 that I got here as my answer now multiply this 3 and it gave me 6. But that is not what I want. I don't want it to be jumping into the next cell by the right, right? The other example I gave you, it was jumping down, but this one is now going to the cell by the right, and that is not what I want. I want it to be this one multiply this one, this one multiply this one, this one multiply this one, right? So what I am going to do is to lock our S7, right? I will lock this our S7 so that it will not be moving, it will not enter into T7 or enter into U7 or enter into V7. I want it to remain in T7. So I am going to undo what I just did. So to lock this S7, I will have to lock the column name, right? Because if we see what happened before, it was moving into the next column, which is T7, U7, V7, W7, and the rest of them. So I just want it to remain in S7. So I am going to lock um, the column name, right? So to lock the column name, I will put a dollar sign before the column name, right? So when I click enter and then I autofill, so I can see it's giving me what I want, right? It gets this one locked in such that it is the only thing that keeps multiplying all these values here. So one multiply one multiply two, one multiply three, right? So it's giving me what I want. So we can see here that these examples I gave us right now are what we call mixed referencing, right? Because it is mixed because I am locking only one thing, that is the column name. Because in this our instance, I locked only the column name. The first instance I gave us, I locked only the row number. But in a situation I am not so sure which one should I lock. Is it column? Is it name? So I can just choose to, let me undo this. So I can just choose to lock both the column name and the row number by putting a dollar sign before first of all the column name, and then I will go to my row number and insert another dollar sign before the row number. Then I'll click enter. So if I still fill this along my cell, it still gives me the same thing. So absolute referencing works, it works the same way. So in a situation maybe you don't know which one you should lock, you don't know if it is the row number or the column name, just go for absolute referencing and put a dollar sign before the column name and the row number too, right? So it locks both of them. So anyone that is now having issue, the jumping issue will now be resolved, right? So that is what relative referencing, absolute referencing, and mixed referencing is all about. So I think we'll be stopping here for today, and prepare our questions if we have any in the course of studying this. Thank you very much. See you.